Welcome back to the channel, everyone. This is part 3 of CCTV for your camper van on a budget. Now, in today's video, we're going to finally get them installed for the final time, run all the wires, run all the power, test the system, and then we'll see what we got and see if it's been worthwhile. You can see on my little workbench here, we've got the cameras mounted to these lengths of unistrut of different sizes. The reason for that is depending on where the camera is located, it needed a different length of unistrut. These two smaller ones are for the sides, the longer one's for the front, and the second to last one there is to look over the back doors of the van. Now I'm just going to pick one of these up so we can have a bit of a closer look. You can see the camera is there mounted up to the unistrut. So looking at these cameras in a bit more detail, you can see, as I pointed out then, I've got the length of the unistrut. We're then bolted through into the bracket. We've got these Allen key bolts here, which allows you to adjust, they're done up tight at the moment, but they allow you to adjust the angle of the camera to get the exact view, what you like. That's the tail that connects to the rest of the system to hook it up. Now the bit I wanted to show you, this is how we're going to mount it. You can see I've popped in one of those Zebedee type nuts. Now the crossbar that goes across the roof of the van, like so, imagine this is across the van. This is one for the side. A bolt goes down through this section into this Zebedee nut and pulls it up tight. Now I can adjust that along the length of this rod to point down and get the exact angle I'm looking for. So that's how we're going to fit it all up. So the cable that needs to go down through the roof, we've got 4 of them, and they're quite large ends. So if you can see that at all. So we need to get 4 of them down through the roof and then back to the monitor to plug in and make everything work. So we're going to have to make a fair size hole in the van roof for that to happen, but we need to protect that from rain and weather and all the rest of it. So we're going to use a gland. So what I've got here is a standard roof gland. I've got a similar one where my solar cables go, and they're typical, you'll see them on Amazon everywhere. But what you've noticed is I've taken out the actual glands in there because, as I said, the ends of these cables are not going to go through the glands themselves. The actual cable thickness, once the end is through, isn't too bad. So the plan is, I'm going to leave these holes open, put a rubber grommet in around here, feed the cables through to each side, and then we're going to seal it up, and hopefully that will keep any rain or anything out from tracking down the cables. And fixing to the roof is the same as any standard one. Bead of silicone or sealant to glue it to the roof, tape it down while it dries, and that should be good with those holes facing away from the direction of travel, of course. So let's get up there and try and do that. So with the cameras now bolted securely to the roof rack, or they will be bolted securely to the roof rack, I'm going to use this stuff, which is a kind of plastic wiring conduit. That's going to run around the perimeter of the roof rack, all the way around, to keep the wires nice and tidy off the roof of the van and then secured. Down through a hole in the roof of the van to the control unit, which is the monitor, which basically distributes the power and acts as your control unit for the cameras themselves. So enough waffle, let's gather some tools and get on with it. Let's get this finished. So one camera fitted up, bolted up to our rail now. Ladder's getting in my own way. You can see what I've done here. The wiring loom comes in under this, goes along the rail, and we're making its way all the way to the front. So I'm going to do that. When I get to one of these side ones, I might have a bit more room to film a bit better, so you'll be able to see a bit more what's going on. Okay, this angle's a bit better, so I've got some room to manoeuvre when I've shown you. So I'll go back, you can see that camera's fitted, and the wiring is coming down in the conduit attached to the rail. So the plan is now we're going to bolt this camera in and its cable, which is that one. We'll run both of them down to the front. Okay, that's that camera bolted in now, nice and tight. Make a little piece of conduit just to cover that wire going into what's going to be the main loom for this side. And now I've got to join up the other cable running along this rail up to where the hole is going to be in the van roof. So that's what it's looking like so far. Makes it plenty of adjustability. We'll do all that when we get the monitor hooked up. All four are now fitted, and the wiring conduit runs down both sides. I've intentionally left these tags up, as this is where I'm going to come back and join in this second cable to go down into the roof. But it's raining pretty much on and off today, so I'm not cutting a hole in the roof because I don't think the silicone will get it to dry, so we'll do that next and then we'll test everything. So we've managed to get everything there bolted to the roof. That's looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. It's literally been on and off raining, so I'm not going to chance cutting a hole for the wires and just trying to silicone up the roof inlet. Not today, so I'll have to come back to tomorrow, but good progress today. I think it's going to be turning out pretty good. So I've marked where I want the gland to sit. Sits pretty flat on the roof there. I just marked the edges with some masking tape, and I made some little marks here. This is to tell me where the shallowest part of the gland is, so I need the hole to be forward of that and a bit bigger to get all the cables through. So I've marked this tape is where I want to start making the hole here. So we need quite a reasonable size hole, so I'm going for this style hole to get enough room to get all the cables in, and hopefully I just need to double check that's okay. So we're going to start drilling that out now. So we've made our hole, we're just making it bigger. I didn't show you what we're using. We're using a step drill. Started off at the smallest point, winded it out. I've also been inside and checked before that hole was that big to make sure it's coming out exactly where I think it is. I'll show you that in a second. What I'm doing is just making sure that the hole is big enough to accept 4 of these cables, one for each camera, one at a time. I've got 2 in the hole already, 3, 4. So as you can see, that can comfortably go down there. So I need to protect this edge, and then I can carry on. So with this, the gland, I've inserted some rubber grommets in there and used a step drill to drill them out. So 2 wires are going to go through each one when I've pulled through all the slack, and then I'm going to seal these up with the silicone before I stick this down where it needs to be. Now hopefully that should keep everything nice and dry. Alright, well finally everything's wired as it should be. So this is the last job now to do on the roof. The gland is in place. You can see all the wires coming down through. So we just need to stick that, tape it down until it dries, and that should be it for the roof. So we're going to pass the cables down through the roof now for all 4 cameras. Some of the cables are like 20 meters long, so it's going to take a while. So I'm going to time lapse that for you now. So we've got all the cables in the van coming down here. We've got tons and tons of spare cables, so we're going to have to manage this into separate coils, and then before we hook it up to the monitor, I'll just show you what that looks like. Right, so we rationalise these up into separate bundles now. You can see how much of stuff there is, how much spare there is. Fortunately, I'm going to be installing about here, so I've got a lot of room at the back to store the excess cable. If you didn't have that room and you're doing a different mounting solution, you might want to consider shortening these cables. So we've got the screen to put on and the loom. You can see those are the other end of the camera connections. So I'm going to try and find a suitable place where I want to mount it, and then I'll attach those up and see what we look. So I've got the loom now attached to the cameras. Push this right back at the thing, and I'm just using this bubble packing because I don't want these wires, these big reels of cable we've got spare rattling around up here. So I placed all the excess cable in one of these. Hopefully that should keep it quiet. And we're going to be mounting the monitor roughly here, so we can still turn it off if you don't want to use it. But I'm going to use that to, seems like a bit of a waste of space, but you've got to store these big bundles of cables there, and I don't want them sort of rattling on the plastic the whole time, so hopefully that will do it. So we're just hooked into the van's 12 volt for a second. There's lots of these excess wires which we won't be using. These are for reverse camera triggers and other stuff that we're not interested in. So it's just the basic power cables that we want. Right, so I've got it all mounted up there provisionally. You can see I've just screwed the arm through this piece of black trim here. Seems pretty sturdy. Like I said, I've pushed all these cables back as far as I can in this corner. The idea being, when we're not in use it, you can rotate it out of the way like that. We'll see if we can move it. So the first thing you do now, I suppose, is try and fire it up and see if we've got any picture. So putting the fuse on, you can see we've got an orange power light, which is encouraging. So first time run, it's firing up. Oh, we got some pictures. All 4 cameras. They need adjusting quite a bit, but I'll be able to do that now. I can see them. Little sign at the top saying I haven't put the SD card in yet, which I haven't. But that looks like it's working at least anyway. And then off again. Okay, so went and got the SD card. That's all fitted now. It's a little bit awkward, but the board inside wasn't quite where it was supposed to be, so I just whipped the back off and adjusted it, and it'll make it easier to take it in and out again. You see it's on now. Like I said before, the wires carry the video and the power, so powering it off. Here powers off all the cameras. Back on again. We've got some up and down buttons here, some channel buttons, which will take you to individual cameras. And then circle back to the 4 view. And then we've got the basic menu. So you've got the date settings, the view, which you can go in and change. Playback if you want to watch video recordings, or you can just eject your card. Split setting, and the system setting where you can do all the formatting and such. So you can see you can set some different resolutions, cyclic recording, and lots of other settings there, and mirror and things like that. So that's how it comes with the fact. It does come with the remote, although I haven't got a button cell handy for that, but that will be quite useful as well, I think. So overall, not too bad, I don't think. So there we are, project complete. So that ends part 3 and this overall CCTV system. So what have we learned? We've learned the system is pretty good for the money. The install is relatively easy. I made it more difficult by installing it on a roof rack. You don't need to do that. I wanted to do the roof rack for future projects, etc. So it was worthwhile me doing that. But without that, and if you just got creative with the way you was mounting your cameras, for £110, I don't think you can do too badly. The power draw on them is really low as well, so it's about an amp that it's pulling at the moment with the battery on, so you can, you know, carry on using that quite a bit. You know, you're not going to flatten your batteries or anything like that. Yeah, all in all, pretty good, I'd say. But if you've got to the end of the series, I really appreciate you watching the video. If you're watching this and you haven't watched part 1 and part 2, I'm going to link them in below, or you can go to the channel pages and look for the playlist, and parts 1 and 2 will be there for you to watch as well. But that's it. So all I would say is please like and subscribe, put on notifications if you can, and share it if you like what we're doing. And any questions, please put them down below. I'd really like to get some questions and answers going, some comments going. So, but that's it. Thanks very much. I'll see you next time.